Welcome to the Only One Shot Golf Podcast. I'm Jim Gallagher Jr. Special thanks to Steve Azar for allowing us to use his music, and you can find Steve at steveazar.com. Don't forget to get your copy of Only One Shot. That's available on Amazon. Written by B.J. Trolio, teaching professional at Old Waverly. Today, we've got Jerry Haas, the head coach of the Wake Forest men's golf team. This is his 25th year. Of course, he was an All-American there, part of the NCAA championships teams there. Played on the European Tour, won 3 times on the Nike/Hogan Tour, and played on the PGA Tour as well. His Uncle Bob won the Masters and multiple times on the PGA Tour and Champions Tour, as his brother Jay did as well. Great golfing family, grew up in Belleville, Illinois, and he's been at the helm at Wake Forest, has done a great job. Has had so many great players, a lot of current players on the PGA Tour that you know, and it's going to be great to catch up with them, and can't wait for y'all to hear from Jerry Haas. All right, it's my pleasure to welcome my good friend Jerry Haas to the podcast. Jerry, I appreciate you spending some time with me this morning.
Jim, it's great to hear your voice, and it's nice to be with you and talk a little golf.
Yeah, we've known each other a while back, played some against each other in college, of course, on the tour, but you've been the coach at Wake Forest, and I hate to do this to you. This is your 24th year since 1997?
25th year, actually, 25th, if you count it,
okay.
as it rolls over into 2022, but I never would have thought that. I quit kind of playing, traveling at 33, and here I am 25 years later, still loving it, and got a really good team, and I enjoy being around good players, which makes your job all that much better.
And you've had plenty of good players, and we'll go through that as well. But everybody knows your Uncle Bob won the Masters multiple times on PGA Tour, Champs Tour. Of course, your older brother Jay as well, an incredible career. But who kind of got you started and were your big influence early on and when you were starting to play the game?
I would say my Uncle Bob Goalby. Jay and I are 10 years apart, so he got right on the PGA Tour at 22 years old, 23. So I was pretty impressionable, I guess, with my golf game at ages 12 to 18, and my uncle was around. He was working for NBC Sports as a commentator, and he had a driving range that he was running in Belleville, Illinois, where we all grew up. And I would work the range, and like many teachers back in the day, he would give me something to work on, and then he'd be gone for a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, and I wouldn't see him, but I would work really hard on it. We didn't really have cameras. You just hoped you were doing it right. And then I always laughed, and then I'd come back and we'd get together, and I'm like, all right, what do you think? And he goes, oh, no, that's not right. I'm like, what do you mean that's not right? I just worked on it for 3 weeks. No, let me show you again. And then he would show you again. So that was kind of the way teaching evolved back in the day. You kind of, if you will, learn from each other. And, you know, my Uncle Bob Goalby played with Snead and Hogan and Nelson and Palmer and Nicklaus, Trevino, and he was in a great time of golf and great players. So he would always tell Jay that, hey, this is what these guys do, and this is what you need to work on. And I credit him a lot as being a really good teacher, because I think today there's too much information and you can really kind of mess a person up. And he would let you figure it out on your own, and that you know as yourself as a great player that you, at the end of the day, you got to figure it out on your own. You're out there, and it's you, I guess, basically against everybody. And like they always say, no one really cares what you shoot, and the others wish you would have shot higher.
That's what my wife says every day. I was struggling. That's exactly what she said. That's so true. What's the best advice he ever gave you? I mean, probably so much, but what's something that really stands out when you think about it today? What piece of advice did Uncle Bob give you?
He gave me he talks about the grip a lot and the importance of the grip. And he's like, I could talk on that for hours. And as I recruit today, I often hear his voice in the back of my head, and I hear him on my shoulder talking to me. He always said if you had a really good grip and good fundamentals, you could get better. There was always any cases where somebody did something pretty unorthodox or had a really poor grip, and eventually it catches up with you once you kind of lose your nerve, if you will. You don't know when to release, and you know, where is the club face. So he was really, really big stickler on the grip. And I have a 17-year-old son now named Kyle that's a very good player, and I mean, I check his grip about every other day, and he keeps showing, how's that look? I'm like, it's a little better, still could be better. So It's a game of a lifetime, as we know, and I still love to play. You still love to play. So he was basically telling me that if you wanted to play this game a long time, your fundamentals could carry you. Obviously, you had to chip and putt, and you had to, have some heart and guts and all that. But at the end of the day, if you could hit it a little bit, that's one thing that always has stuck out with me.
You say that, and it sounds, everybody says, oh, that's old school. But it has to be fundamentals. It's the base. It's the basis of everything. And if you don't have good fundamentals, the rest of it doesn't. I think we get lost in the golf swing. Nobody pays attention to the grip, the setup. That's such a great point, and I think it gets lost, don't you? In today's world, everything's focused on the golf swing and all the different things that are out there, and they forget about the grip sometimes, or even where you place the ball in your stance.
Exactly. He always said, sometimes if you're a little off, you go back to your basics and, check your ball position, alignment, and within a couple buckets of balls, all of a sudden you're starting to hit it good again. And, I'm amazed, to be honest, Jim, when I get some of these videos and I watch some of these players up close and I look at their grips. But here's the thing, and I've done this a long time. If you're a teaching professional at a course and you've got a young kid that's coming up and he's really good, but as a teaching professional that, man, his grip's bad or he does something that really is probably not, is going to hold him back. Well, if you say something and try to change that young man or that young lady will all of a sudden struggle and not play very well. And then they'll look at the teacher and say, wow, he was really good or she was really good till so-and-so got a hold of them and really messed them up. Well, he was trying to help them, down the line and help them in the long run. But so what happens is they ignore that. They see the ball fly. They draw some lines on a camera and they, you're 18 degrees today and yesterday you were 17 degrees. That's why you hit it to the right. Well, to me, that's part of it, hitting the ball offline and learning to play from the rough or learning to play a 5 or 6 hole stretch where you don't even hardly make contact with the face, but yet you somehow played them in 1 over, and then you make a few birdies late, and all of a sudden you shoot 2 under. So that's lost a lot today in the teaching in these kids because teachers really, really have to, their livelihood's on the line, and parents are sending them there, and you make my son a better player or my daughter a better player or else. And Jim, I mean, you spent years at your craft, and I've spent years at it, and I'm still learning at 58, trying to get better. So it never ends. Your body changes. You get longer, you get shorter, you get stiffer, whatever it is. And these young players today don't realize that, man, I didn't sleep great last night, or why am I not hitting it great today? Well, you're just not. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. It looks the same on camera. It's just different.
Yeah, that's so well said because everybody in our world, it's instant success. And then when you make a change, you're going to get worse. You're going to go backwards before you go forward.
Oh, man. And now it takes a lot for that young man or that young lady to kind of see the light and really trust in that teacher. And I think the best teachers in the world can make small changes, and yet the player can still be a very good player. And I always have hated through the years that, I'm changing my swing. Well, that's why I'm shooting in the 80s now. I'm like, all right, you don't have to still shoot in the 80s. You should be able to find a way to get it around, whether it's toe hooks or heel shanks or whatever. You should be able to play if you can play.
Well, we get playing golf swing and not golf shots, golf playing. And I think that's the biggest thing for so many young players out there. And you're right, they want that instant success. They're paying big bucks for you to get instantly better. And sometimes we aren't as patient. And I think, as you said, if you've got a young player and they've got a grip or an issue, it's got to be taken care of early on so it's not tougher as they get into college or even as a pro to make that, because it becomes their signature. If you're not careful, it's a learned habit.
Exactly. Yeah, can I tell a story? If
absolutely.
We got time.
We got plenty. We got all day.
All right. Webb Simpson came and played for me here at Wake Forest, and Arnold Palmer Scholarship, and this really nice player out of Raleigh. And the first week he's here, I'm looking at his grip, and I'm like, oh man, he's got the long thumb through there, and he's got about maybe 2 fingers of the right hand on there, and as he takes it back, it looked like he was playing a flute or something. His fingers are moving around. And so I'm laying in bed the first week he's on campus, and every night I'm like, should I say something or shouldn't I? And so finally one day I acted like I was filming somebody else, and I really zoomed in on him. And true story, I call him over and I say, well, I want to show you something. And he'd been a little leery of me the first week, and I understand that. He had his teacher at home, and, I'm not going to mess him up. And I'm certainly, I'd like to say, in 25 years, I haven't had too many kids that have left here worse.
Mm-hmm.
I underteach before I overteach. But so Webb comes over and he looks at it, and I show it to him. I show him the fingers moving. He goes, man, who is that? and I started laughing. I'm like, that's you. And he's like, no way, that's me. And then he started looking at the grip and the gloves, and he's like, God, that is me. And I'm like, all right. I said, I'm not telling you what to do here, but you need to get all 10 fingers on the club here. And you need some context, kind of like tires on a car. We got to have there's a lot of shock going on, a lot of happening down there at the ball. Let's see if we can improve on that. So I went inside. I got him a formed grip on there, the one of the formed grip with a 7-iron, and I made him, and he said, oh man, this feels so weird. And he hit probably 15 of the prettiest 7-irons you've ever seen. He just had the biggest smile. He's like, well, I can do that. Well, the next day, of course, he's back to his old moving the paint, whatever. So he did not play very well at NCAA at Caves Valley his freshman year, and we had a great relationship, and I couldn't get a hold of him for about 2 or 3 weeks. And finally he calls me. I'm like, man, where have you been? He goes, I've been changing my grip. And I start laughing. He goes, yeah. And he goes, that 79 I shot is unacceptable. I got to. So anyway, so he went, and when I did talk to his teacher, Ted Kegel, and Ted's like, oh, thank you for saying something and about his grip. And, there was an example of Ted having a really good player and Webb shooting 59, and all this stuff at his course. And, how do you change that? But so he wins the U.S. Open out at Olympic Club. And then they had an article in Golf Digest that said, play like Webb Simpson. Had a picture of his hands on the club. So I called him up and I said, did they airbrush your hands on the club? He started laughing.
That's awesome. That's so true. And when you're teaching and coaching, everybody wants to hear what they want to hear, but not everybody wants to hear what's the truth. And I think that's an example where fortunately it changed, because sometimes teachers as they get and they're playing so well, they don't want to change something, and it really needs to be done early on. And you mentioned something and you grew up in the Midwest, but now we see these kids coming into college, and we all are good athletes. But what's your opinion on kids playing other sports and not focusing strictly on maybe just golf and maybe early on and playing other sports?
That I love that, Jim. I love that so much. I like a good athlete because you play other sports, you learn how to be a teammate, you learn how to win, you learn how to lose, you learn how to compete. And it has gotten so specialized in golf and baseball, football, everything that kids play nowadays. And the reality is that the parents are probably a little bit panicked or a little nervous that, man, if this kid doesn't get good right now, then he's not going to have a chance to go to college. And if he plays basketball and football and baseball and, I played golf and basketball and baseball in high school. And I'm sure you played many sports. As soon as the season ended, I went to the next sport. Right. So I think that really, really helped me. And when I'm recruiting today, I like a kid that tell me that, I'm on the AAU basketball team, or, hey, I play baseball, or, I'm a really good running back, or whatever it is. I'm like, man, I'd like to get a hold of that kid. I'd like him to come here, because I feel like in the long run, the sad thing about maybe college golf recruiting is we look at a kid when he's maybe 15, 16, possibly 17 if he's still available, and then you make that decision and you kind of think to yourself, what's he going to be like when he's 20? How's he going to pan out? And you break it down. They commit so early that you don't get them for another year and a half, sometimes 2 years before they actually get on your campus. And then, hopefully they're still the same player, and hopefully they have not digressed in any way. Or it's just very, very, very tough college golf recruit. I always liken it, if I'm going to recruit Jim Gallagher to be my tight end at Wake Forest, and all of a sudden you can't catch.
Mm-hmm.
When you can't catch, I'm going to make you an outside linebacker or a special teams guy. I can do something with you because you're a good athlete, but all of a sudden the golfer gets a bad lesson, or he's got the chip yips, or he doesn't putt well, or whatever the situation is. Now you have to try to figure that out pretty quickly, or else you've missed on that kid.
Is there anything specific you look for? I mean, there's no way to predict it, like you said. And I think what's happened, and you've been around it, and I watched it with my girls being recruited, they are now, y'all aren't able to get them and not make them, but so many kids were committing in 7th, 8th, 9th grade. Are there specific things you kind of look for that maybe can help you guide you do? And how do you balance that? How do you, not take the chance, but how do you balance that? Because it's changed. There's so many things that changed in you in recruiting now, but how do you balance that and figure out this may be the kid that can do it? Is there something special there?
I think every coach probably has a different philosophy, but I would say that number one, I want to be around somebody that I'm going to enjoy their company, I guess, for 4 years, and not only 4 years, but the rest of your life. You hope that I've got a bulletin board behind me with former players and their kids, and been to weddings, and I stay in touch with most of them, and always send them a little goodie, or just say, hey, thanks for coming to Wake Forest. But you start with the kid, and when you're recruiting them, I look at dumb things like I gave a kid more scholarship one time before he got here because he wet his towel. I watched him dip it in a bucket and wring it out, and I was like, no other kid does that. They spit on their towel, and they don't clean their grips, and he's cleaning his ball, and I'm like, that kid, he already does a lot of good things. I like him. I look at things like, are they nice to their parents? Are they respectful to their parents? Do they get the flag when it's laying on the green and they've already finished? Or do they just go to the next hole, and do they walk ahead of them? Do they clank their clubs? Are they moving? I look at kids that, that respect the game a little bit, have good etiquette, just small little things. I probably think about the best players, and I feel like they all had pretty wide arcs to their swing. They were long-armed and very flexible. I look for flexibility. Length doesn't really, matter to me that much. If a guy hits toe hooks and shoots 68, and the other guy looks like a tour pro and shoots 78, I'll take the 68 every day. That's my livelihood. But you got to get a little lucky. Sometimes it's not who you get, it's who you don't get. And, you try really hard to get a kid. I would say I like kids that are very unspoiled by junior golf. A great example of that was Cameron Young, who's doing really well on the PGA Tour. And, I think it was between us and Stanford, and he was from New York, and I recruited him very, very heavily. And I just liked him. He only played one AJGA event, and not that there's anything wrong with all these junior tours, but his dad just always felt that, well, there's so many good courses up here in New York that why should I have to travel around the country? And he played with in amateur events in the Met section, and he was really, really good. And he was very unspoiled by traveling, and I need this or I need that, and very self-sufficient young man. And he won twice here as a freshman, and then he comes in my office, and he says, there's about 9 things I want to change with my swing. And I said, well, no, we could make it look better, but is it really better? I said, you're a pretty explosive player, and you do a lot of good things. So I said, all right, I hear you. So I called his dad that night, David Young, who's the pro at Sleepy Hollow. And I said, look, your son came in, he wants to change 9 things. And I said, look, out of respect for you, I know that you've taught your son all his life, and you know him better than I do. And his dad, the conversation lasted about 45 seconds. His dad was like, well, that's why I sent him there. If you feel like you need to change something, or he does, then that's fine with me. I'm like, well, I understand that, but I just don't want to step on your toes. And he's like, yeah, I had a long day, and I had an outing today, and I'm pretty tired. So, whatever you decide, that's great with me. And I'm like, I hung up, and I said to myself, now there's a good parent right there.
Yeah.
There's a that gets it, and therefore now you fast forward, and Cameron Young looks like a kid that could be a really nice player for a long time, just because his dad doesn't complicate it. He makes a good shoulder turn and, completes it coming through. You look at good players, they complete that rotation of their chest and their body. So when they're choking and can't spit down the stretch, they just basically rely on their instincts or their movements of their body.
Yeah, so true. I think that's kind of the lost part. It's so hard to balance it because they all have teachers. You're kind of like that second set of eyes, and that's all the coaches say. We just kind of stay in touch with their teacher or their parent. And golf is becoming more like tennis, where parents are a lot more involved. And it's hard to figure that out. But you got to look for people also that match up with the people you have there. I mean, that's the balance.
Yeah.
Because it's like you said, that's why good athletes or kids that play other sports are able to adjust to college golf so much easier, and it's such an easier adaptation. But a lot of kids are leaving early. Do you look at that when you're recruiting, knowing a kid, well, he may leave early, or how do you keep them and convince them that pro golf's always going to be there? Let's just try to get a degree, or let's try to stay here for at least 3 or 4 years and get the most out of college, because pro golf's always going to be there. How do you kind of encourage them to do that?
I haven't had many that have left early. I've had in 25 years, only had 5 kids not graduate. And,
wow.
I think that starts a little bit at home, Jim, with the parents, and they say, hey, you're going to college and you're going to get an education. And along the way, you learn a lot about yourself. And my brother Jay has always said that this is the hardest that these young men or these young women will work at their game probably ever in their life, unless they play it professionally, because you practice them every day, you're qualifying, you've got a club in your hand almost every day. So if you're going to get any good at this game, this is the time you're probably going to get pretty good at it. There's been, I can't even think of a very rare occasion where somebody didn't do very well in college, and then all of a sudden, well, wait till I get out, I don't have to study, and I can just practice. Well, practicing's great. Bill Haas and Webb Simpson hit probably 100 balls total between the two of them in 4 years, and people look at me, I'm like, they just played every single day. They had a game every day, and they went over and they probably played for a few bucks, and and then they would stop sometimes around the green and chip, and then they'd play some more, and they would play wolf, and they would play partners, and they just love to play. And I think kids stand on the range too much. I mean, you hit flats, you got a perfect lie, you rake it in, and you hit a shot. Oh, I didn't like that one. Let me just rake in another one. We're on the course. If you play, you've got to putt every hole. You're going to hit it in a bunker. You're going to hit it in a fairway bunker. You're going to get a wind that's left to right, with a bad shadow, or you're going to get something that makes you very uncomfortable. And if Jim Gallagher tees off at 1:00, you hit a driver down the first. Well, the second hole's a par 3, and then the third hole you're hitting an iron off the tee because there's a creek down there. And now on the fourth hole, which is 44 minutes later, 34 minutes later, now all of a sudden you hit a driver again. So that's a lot different than standing there and, oh, that wasn't a very good drive, and then teeing up another one. Oh, hey, that was better. Yeah, now I'm figuring it out. Well, no, you really didn't figure it out. You're a good athlete, and therefore you could make it go okay, but can you really make it go when it's crunch time?
So true. I could have played for you because I hated the practice.
We'd have had it every day, Jim.
I'd have played as bad. I did because I grew up on a golf course with no range where my dad was the pro, and I just play as many holes, and we were limited on times back then. You couldn't play between 4 and 5 or all these different 12 and 4 and all those things. But I agree. I think they spend too, and you've got beautiful facilities as you do at Wake, and they get spoiled with that, and they want to spend time there. But that's that creativity, I think, that in thinking different lies, different shots when you get out and play. I think that's such a big benefit. But let's go back. Well, I'll tell you what, while we're here, what adjustments have you had to make in coaching? You've been there, as you said, this is 25 years. What kind of adjustments, because the game has changed somewhat with length and technology and teaching instruction. What are some of the adjustments you've had to make just in your coaching?
I wouldn't say that they don't listen as well, but they don't seem to maybe grasp it a little bit when you tell them, hey, you got to watch this pin over here. And you throw them out, put the cups out there in the practice round. I can tell you from years, we've been to this tournament a lot, that this hole plays short. I'm thinking of a hole that we came up, the third hole at the Floridian. I don't know, it's like 340 to the water, and I told them in the practice round, believe it or not, this may be a 3-wood if it's downwind, because you can get to the water, and a couple of them drove it in the water. They hit drivers, and they're like, well, it was 340. I'm like, I know, but I've seen it. I've told you that, and that's the frustrating part. That I always say, look, I don't want to be right. I'm not trying to say, hey, I'm right and you're wrong. I'm just trying to help you shoot a better score, make you happier, makes our team better. When the practice round is so important that and a lot of kids don't know how to play a practice round. They're worried about how they're hitting it, and they don't putt to where the cup's probably going to be. They stand around the hole in the middle of the green and make 5-footers, and then they have a putt in the tournament and they have no idea what it does. Where I'm saying, if you hit 10 or 15 putts, if the water is in front of the green and the pin's just over the water, if you're a good player, you're most likely going to be past that pin, unless you hit it fat and you get lucky and it gets close. So in the practice round, you should putt from behind that pin, down that hill or whatever it is. And, they don't. They putt from the, I want to say putt where you think you're going to be. Now, if you hit it a foot and you tap in, well, good for you. But at least be prepared the best possible way you can. Gary Hallberg, who's first-team All-American, all 4 years here at Wake, we played a tournament at a course, and he plays at it a lot. So he sent me these great notes. And I just, one after another, I see him in the wrong spot and, going for greens and doing this and that. And, boy, these bunkers are bad. I want to say, yeah, I told you that, And so that's the little bit of the frustrating part. The good ones get it. The ones that struggle don't seem to get that. They don't seem to grasp it as quickly for whatever reason. And I always wanted to do like a paper, a thesis or whatever, because you think about kids that were good in college, then they all of a sudden were right on tour, and they were good on tour, and they seemed to make it. I would say that Tom Lehman kind of was a guy that was a late bloomer at 29, 30. He's one of the rare guys, because you get so much scar tissue and baggage that it takes a long time to get out there. And once you finally get out there, you have guys that, oh man, he's 36 and he's finally out here. Well, he lasts about 2 or 3 years because he some reason he took him that long to get out there. And then when he gets out there, something happens that he can't stay out there. So it's a very, very tough game to, I guess, keep yourself pumped up and keep staying after it and all that stuff. But it's something that. Go ahead.
I think the practice rounds, that was a great point, because I had a young player playing in college freshman year. He's telling me, hey, I know where to hit it off the tee. I get up on the greens. I don't know where all the ledges are. I don't know where all the slopes are yet, because I'm learning them. And I kind of said, well, spend the majority of your time around the green, chipping, putting. Find a landmark in the back to kind of tell you where the ledges are. And this was interesting. We did the Darius Rucker at Long Cove for the women just a couple of weeks ago, and I've never seen this done. Maybe the guys do it, but the university, you all know where the flags are going to be cut for those 3 days. They actually put flags, and they had a little device where they sat them on the green. When they came into the fairway shot, they could see where the flags were going to be each day. I thought that was brilliant, to give the players a visual. This is where the flag's going to be, or this is where the flag's going to be. I've never seen that before. I thought that was a brilliant way of playing a practice round, focusing more on where the pins are going to be.
Absolutely, yep. And then as a good player, you take it a step further. You look at that pin, and then you say, you know what? Hey, long left here is actually okay. I'm chipping back uphill, better than short. So then if you get in the fairway and you're between a 7 and an 8, then you say, you know what, I can be a little aggressive on this pin. And just the opposite, you look and say, oh, man, over is no good. I got to make sure I stay under this one. They don't quite realize the value of a par.
Right.
They think if it's a driver 5-iron downwind, everybody's hit driver 5-iron to 10 feet and make an eagle, and if they don't, they tap in for birdie. But not the case at all. And I refer to my uncle a lot, and my uncle would always say, you can still shoot a good score by parring a couple easy holes. And, that's always kind of sunk in with me, because if you don't birdie that par 5, then the next hole is a tough par 3, and you hit a 420 feet and make it. Well, you just went par birdie, and the other guy goes birdie bogey. You're better than him for those 2 holes. You're 1 under, and he's even.
Absolutely.
So it's a 5-hour chess game out there, 4.5 hours, where you're trying to maneuver yourself and keep yourself calm. But yet, I always say, play with emotion, but don't be emotional.
True.
That's a huge difference. And the ones that can kind of keep in the thing and stick with their game plan and realize that, the cream will rise to the top here over 54 holes and keep at it and make adjustments. When I'm recruiting, I look at a kid, Jim shot 78, 74, 68. Ooh, Jim shot 77, 70, 67. Hey, Jim's pretty good at making adjustments. I'd rather have him than the kid that shoots 69, 76, 81. He can't handle the pressure as much, and he seems to have not made the adjustments.
Well, I think that's true. Adjustments versus changes, even during the round.
Yeah,
I think that's the tough balance for young players, because you're dealing with guys who are, they're past junior golf and they're learning still. I think that's the difficult part. Even the pros struggle with that. What did you learn? And you were an All-American, and you've been on national championship teams. You've won 3 times on the Nike Tour. You played professionally for 9 years. You're still a good player. You still stay competitive. I don't know how the heck you do it. What are you able to tell these guys from your experiences? What are some of the things you tell them from your experiences that help you in your coaching and help teach them along the way?
I would say one thing that that's why I'm still decent. And, I just figure there's not many coaches that can still play a little bit that'll actually sign a card and play. And, I won the South Carolina Open when I was 56. I think probably the oldest guy to win it. I made 7 birdies in a row.
Wow.
Down at a course where my brother Jay plays at. And I told him later, I said, I think the golf gods thought it was Jay Haas playing, not Jerry. That's why I made 7 in a row. But he's like, I never made 7 in a row. And I'm like, yeah. Anyway, I digress.
You had to get Big Brother a little grief, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, but I'd say that the one thing and the reason that I think I stay okay, I stretch every morning and every night, and I harp on these guys about stretching because they're all real flexible and they think, I'm always going to be flexible, but the importance of getting the club in a good position and creating that coil of your golf swing and your spring. And I mean, you've looked at 1,000 swings. I've looked at 1,000 swings. Nobody swings it the same. It may look the same, but wrist position's different. Their club face is different. Their hand height is different. Their impact is a little different. So I kind of believe like if the body is moving well, you'll kind of figure out as a good player with good hand-eye. So I can't, that's probably the hidden thing that no one ever talks about is flexibility and stretching. And I think we're seeing a little bit more of it in the game of golf, and that there are things that you do. If you're on the PGA Tour, you go to the trailer and they stretch you every day and they keep you loose and flexible. But I tell the players too, if I'm trying to play in something and I have some success, I'm like, I just didn't step out and have that success this week. I prepared for that for years, and every single day of my life, I do something. I try to eat right, and I try to stretch, and I've become a much better player as a coach because I sit and I watch these guys, and I realize, Jim, that we make it so difficult. We make the game so much harder than it really has to be. And I tell them to watch golf on TV. There was guys at the players that had 220 and they might lay up on 16, and oh my gosh, a kid at 220, in college, there's no way he'd lay up. He wouldn't be, he'd thinking, man, if I can get this back there. But the pro knows that, man, if I hit this a little hot out of the rough, this thing hits on the green, it's in the water, that's a penalty, I might as well just be aggressive and hit a 7-iron or 6-iron and get it up there where I can pitch it, kind of take 3 out of play, if you will. But they realize that, the value of I don't like this. I can reach for sure, but I just don't like it. And I think that's the one of the things that I really try to stress to these players, that don't make it difficult. If you don't like driving on that hole, don't hit driver. If you like iron off that hole, who cares if everybody else is hitting driver? If it makes you play that hole better, that's all that matters.
Absolutely, and I think that's the thing. You got to play your game. You can't worry about. I think everybody got caught up with the Bryson DeChambeau distance. Rory said he did. All these guys chasing distance. These guys are long enough. But how has working out in college changed? And you mentioned something that's so important, flexibility, and that's why I end up having to basically quit playing because I wasn't staying flexible enough. How is the workout? Because I know I talked to Jay Goebel at Baylor, the women's coach, and they, on both the men and women, hired specifically a person that's golf minded for their workouts. What are some of the things y'all do at Wake Forest in your workouts?
We're very lucky. We've had a guy now for, I think, 9 years who's been our strength and conditioning guy, and his name's Coach Bass, David Bass. And he's been here longer than that, but he's TPI certified, and he does a lot of core work, a lot of stretching, a lot of lower back. He doesn't believe that you lay down. There's not a lot of bench pressing. You don't lay down in around the golf, so everything's up with movement. A lot of med ball throws. They've got a brick wall outside the weight room. You can roll up the garage, and you do the side throws and all those things for explosiveness, and that come with the TPI experience. And they work out about 4 mornings a week. I think they had workout this morning just after spring break at 6:30, and but they love it. They have no complaints, and basically it's a discipline that they have to be there. And if you're going to be there, I'm like, well, let's do it. If you're going to be there, let's try to get better. Let's try to make our body better. You're going to be a little sore. You're going to be a little this, but I do have a couple others that'll go maybe a couple more days a week as well. They might do some cardio in those other days, but I have one kid that's Michael Brennan that's won 4 times, and he just qualified for L.A. I caddied for him at Riviera, and he shot 66, played beautifully. And, he doesn't eat chocolate, and he, stays in great shape and works out about 6 times a week. And on top of that, he's a 3.5 student. So
wow,
he's a coach's dream. Yeah, basically in the recruiting, it's Wake, Duke, Virginia, Georgia Tech, Vanderbilt, Stanford. Probably miss a couple in there too, but we kind of go for the same kid. Somebody that you think can handle the schoolwork. It's a pretty good academic load here at Wake, and but yeah, at the same time, obviously a good player. So it's
you could throw Notre Dame in there now too, a northern school, which you rarely see northern schools be able to do what the southern schools can do in balance that. I think that's the thing. What advice do you have for the kids that are listening? When they're listening, what they're looking for, because school is why you're there. It's not just to play golf. Yeah. So what advice do you have for the kids out there to get them prepared so when they come to college, because it's going to be a shock when they get there, to balance school, workouts, like you said, golf, they want a personal life. What advice do you have for those kids to balance all those things?
I think they have to walk in here like they belong. They can't look at this guy, oh, he's so much better than me, or this or that. They have to have a plan. They have to know that, it may be a little bit before I play, but I'm not going to give in. I'm going to play with the best players. I'm going to learn. I'm going to listen. I know my time is going to come, and when it does, I'll be ready for it. And I've recruited so many kids. I think this kid is so tough, and then he gets here and he's so soft. And then I have another kid. I think this kid, I don't know about him, and then he turns out to be so tough. So it's hard to tell which way is the kid going to go. I would say you have to be prepared. The golf is the easiest part of college. It's all those other things. It's the going to class. It's the going to workout. It's fitting in on the team. It's, making your schedule. It's learning how to say no a lot of times. Back to Notre Dame there, John Hanrigan, what a great job he's doing. I knew he'd be a good coach. He was down assistant at Florida for Buddy Alexander, and he's done a really, really good job of identifying players, and you kind of teach them how you want them to think, I guess, about the game, and not so much act, but how you think about it, how you prepare, how you get ready. And for recruits out there, I would say this: you come to college after 3 months of summer, or 3.5 months of summer, and then you're only there for 3 months. And then you get about almost 5 to 6 weeks off. And then you come back and you're there for about 4 months. Well, the other 5 months, you get to spend 3.5 months at home in the summer. You get to, spend 5 weeks. And if you have a teammate that lives in a warm place, you could spend a warm Florida, break over Christmas or whatever. But too many kids, I got to go south. I got to go down here. Where I always tell them, you need to look maybe sometimes north. You need to look at all the opportunities up there. Now, sure, it may be a little, dicey in February or early March, but eventually the weather breaks. And there's been so many good players. I mean, you grew up in Indiana. I grew up in Illinois.
Right.
Hale Irwin grew up in St. Louis, Missouri. And, you just go on and on and on. Steve Stricker's a Wisconsin guy. And, it's just, you don't have to always be in the sunshine. And I personally think that might be an advantage because you played other sports and you gave your body a rest and you gave your mind a rest from golf. And when you can't play all the time, that's sometimes okay because it gives you a, I wouldn't say a release, but it gives you something that, all right, I don't have to worry about it. If you're in a place where it's beautiful every day, you think, I feel guilty not playing today. That's hard for a kid to do.
Well, that's the thing. You need a time to decompress, and that's why time management is so important. And that's what makes successful college players or students or whoever is being able to manage that time because you do need time off. And that's what we got. I think that's why we still love the game is we had those times off. And northern teams come south. They host tournaments in Florida or Arizona. I think the toughest time, and I talked to John Fields about that. I said, man, I would think going into the fall would be the best time to play. Kids are playing, the golf courses are in shape because our guys are tired from the summer.
Yeah.
He said, we're tired from the summer. And I never even thought about that. In spring are the toughest conditions, and you know that. And you guys play, and I think and I don't know about y'all's schedule, and I've looked at it. I think now y'all are playing more all over the country in case you get put in a regional somewhere else or learn to play different courses. And that's been an adjustment too as well.
Sure, learn to play different grasses, different weather, different. You don't want a kid that's only good in the summertime. You want a kid that can play on Bermuda, that can play on Seaside Bend out there at, Pebble Beach. That man, these greens are spooky, but you got to have good speed. I guess my biggest pet peeve is that kid that's got a 12-footer or a 10-footer, and then as soon as he hits it, he's got to go into his pocket to get his marker. I always look, from 10 feet, it either should be in, if not at the tap in. There's too many guys. They take forever to putt. I think they lose a little bit of their feel for the game by lining up the ball and doing all that things and looking at the green reading book and all. I liken it to this. If Jim's warming up in basketball and Jim Gallagher's shooting them there and you're going to shoot them pretty normal, nobody guarding you, well, you hardly get one shot like that in the game. You get one where you have to kind of lean left and kind of put a little more arc on it because the guy's coming to block it, or you got to get underneath him and then scoop it, or you got to, use the glass on this one when you didn't want to because he's pushed you or whatever. So that's kind of like golf when you're hitting balls on the range. Oh, it's pretty easy, but it's never like that on the course. You get one opportunity. I had a bad lie. Ball was below my feet. Well, ball below your feet, it's probably going to go thin to the right if you're right-handed. So you got to aim a little more left and maybe take one more club. And you don't learn that on the range and hitting. So
that's why this podcast is called Only One Shot Golf. Because in life or golf, you may have only one shot, and that's the true one. But a couple questions, I'll let you go because I know you're busy. When you look back on your playing career, what are you most proud of?
Boy, I don't know. I've asked that question about a lot lately as I've gotten older, and I don't know if I'm an underachiever or an overachiever. So I'm 5'10" and 170 pounds, and I probably weighed 150 pounds when I was 10 years old. I was a fat little boy, and I could really go, Jim. I won the International Junior when I was 10. I won the Little People's 3 times, and so I don't know. I'm very streaky. Like I would have some nice hot stretches of golf, and then I would say, what am I most proud of? Boy, that's
It's a hard one. I got a tougher one after this, so get this one.
Yeah.
Think about this one. So I'll let you think about that and you come back to it.
Okay.
When you look over your coaching, how would you
Yeah.
want your coaches describe you as a coach? Not how you describe it, but how would you want them to describe you? Those are two tough ones. I should have backed you.
Yeah, no, that one's probably a little easier. I think that I really try to develop the personality of a young person here. Going back a little bit to being respectful. We still wear long pants because of Coach Haddock, and we respect the game of golf. I want them to, if they don't play for a living, I want them to be the best amateur. I want them to be the club champ. I want them to be in the business world, and people just can't wait to play with them because they played at Wake Forest, and man, this guy's really good. And some people that think they're okay, they don't realize what really good is. They haven't seen really good. So I want the players to, and it's hard for them. I want them to kind of relax into the young person they're going to be. I want them to have a good smile. We do a lot of stuff with donors, and donors always come back to me and say, man, I was so impressed with so-and-so. He was very well-spoken and, good eye contact and great handshake and very engaging. And those kind of things I always talk to the team about. I always spread the word. I'm like, hey, guys are doing a great job. I'm like, that's how you build a network in life. That's how you build fans. That's how you build relationships that you never know how that person could help you. And my dad always said, it costs nothing to be nice to someone. And I kind of live by that a little bit. And I want the players, if I see them being disrespectful, or if I see them, not appreciative of what they have. Everybody talks about attitude, and attitude's great, but my big A word is appreciative. I want them to appreciate their opportunity that their parents or someone has given them. I want them to appreciate the opportunity of their college life. I mean, these are the best years of their lives. They don't realize it or maybe some do, but as time goes on, they think, man, I wish I was back in school, man. That was fun. I don't want it to be a work. I don't want it to be dreadful, if you will. So I would say the other coach probably described me as
old school.
Old school, maybe a free spirit, maybe I think the great thing about golf, and the thing that attracted me, and probably you as well, is at the end of the day, if you play better than me, I take my hat off and I shake your hand and say, well done. There's no, you know what, he was just better than me. And as a player, then I analyze that, how was he better than me? Well, he hit two better drives than I did. He made 2 extra putts, or whatever it is. And that's the respect you get from other players, and that's the respect you get in golf. And everybody, I love when, players from other sports are going to retire and then they're going to play the Champions Tour. They're going to do this or that. I laugh, and I just think, they don't realize how many hours we have spent and how hard it is to do it over and over, hole by hole. Every hole, Jim, there's a crisis. The first tee, do I hit driver or 3-wood? And now I'm in the rough. Is it going to jump? Is it not going to jump? And now it jumped. And okay, is this chip going to be hard? I don't have a great lie. And then the next hole, it starts over again. Do I hit 8? Do I hit 7? So you're constantly making decisions quickly, I might add, kind of quickly on the fly. And you got about 15, 20 seconds to decide, and then you make that decision. And people always, oh, God, I should hit 8 there. I'm like, well, it's a great game of what if. If we'd have known 8 was going to go long, we'd have hit 9, But you don't know that at the time. But there are things you can do. If you are in between clubs, I tell them, if you think you got too much, take a little bit of the air out of it. Hit it a little lower. That way it's going to get on the ground, and if it is going to be long, at least it hit on the green, and then it just trickles over, opposed to just hitting something up in the air. And I'm sure you watch the players. And 17th hole, I get it. It was windy and it was comical and and all that stuff. But how about the guy? How many that just hit standard high shots up in the wind? They just blow them around. Hardly anybody tried to hit it, knee high over there.
I know. Did you see the one guy had over 100 and some feet apex, like 2 balls? It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, that's because, as Uncle Bob would say, he's a one-way Charlie. He doesn't really know how to play.
True.
I think in college golf today, there's a lot of good players, but there's more guys that can shoot 72 to 75, but there aren't many that can really play, that'll slide it, that'll curve it, that'll, they get around the green, it's a 60 degree every time. They never hardly take an 8-iron bump and run, or a 9-iron from the edge. And
that's so true. I watched that. They're one-dimensional with chipping. Tiger Woods didn't do that. These guys, and I think for the kids out there listening, even your college kids, go to a tournament live and watch it live to see how these guys follow a group specifically that day and see how they manage their way around it. But you answered your question of what you're most proud of, and what I'll answer it for you. You had the great Bob Goalby, your brother, yourself. You've learned from these people, and now you're passing that on, all your experiences. So the thing you're most proud of is what you've learned from them. You've taken it and passing it on to other young people, and you're continuing that trend. So kind of answered your question for you. I don't know if you agree with that, but you've taken the knowledge you've gotten from those men and your own experiences, and you're passing it on and making these young guys better people, because you're molding young men at a very pivotal part of your life. That's my take on what you would be proud of.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'll agree with you on that, Jim. That's very complimentary, and I thank you for saying that. And I've got 58. I'll probably do it maybe another 4 or 5 years, and that'll be enough for me, and turn it over to somebody else. But,
so you're going to retire before my grandsons, who are 4, are going to play? Come on now.
Yeah. Yeah. They won't want an old guy like me. They want somebody young.
Well, they got an old guy. They're old pro, they call me. They got me already. But I appreciate you spending time with us. It's been great catching up with you. Good luck to you. Where y'all play next? I want to get to that, because y'all got the big spring season coming on. Where y'all going next? I think it's the Floridian in a week or so.
That's correct. Going to the Floridian. We've had some good luck there. We seem to have played well there. Last year, it just shows a little bit how long I've done it, I guess. Last year, we were playing the practice round, and they said, all right, make sure you sand in all your divots. So I was out of sand on the 18th hole, and our guys were hitting shots in there. We had about 2 holes left. So I walked over to this cart, and there's a guy sitting in it. And I said, hey, is there any way I could just borrow a couple of these sand bottles here? We're about out. He's like, yeah, no problem. And as I grab the sand bottle, I make eye contact with him, and it just comes out of my mouth. And I go, oh, man, you're Reggie Jackson. And he goes, yes, I am. So anyway, he introduces me to his girlfriend, and, we're chatting it up. And I'm just, this is Reggie Jackson. I grew up coming home and watching the A's play against the all the Orioles. So anyway, I get up to the green now, and he kind of is following us now. He's over there watching from a distance. And I get up to the green, and I'm like, all right, guys, don't look over there. Don't make it obvious. But you're not going to believe who's over there. I said, that's Reggie Jackson. Well, within unison, they're all like, who's Reggie Jackson? I'm like, are you kidding me? You don't know? So it just shows. I was like, oh man, these kids are young. But anyway,
well,
so then he
was great. For those kids who are listening, that don't know Reggie Jackson, he was one of the greatest baseball players ever. So remember that. Go back and learn some history, don't you? I think that's important. Is just learning the history of everything. We just don't do that enough. But
here's I'm going to leave you with one trivia question here. See how you do on it.
I can edit this too, right?
Yeah. Through the history of PGA Tour.
Okay.
Since they've been keeping records, how many players have won 10 or more times in their career?
Ooh.
You can win some cash with this one, or dinner, or beer, or something.
I have no idea. I would say 25, but I'm probably way off.
How about you're only 95 off?
What? Really?
120 guys have won 10 or more times.
Unbelievable. So, I was lowballing it, thinking I usually exaggerate, so I went opposite. Wow.
Yeah, most everybody guesses anywhere between 18 and 35. I've had, and because they just think of today's player, but you forget about Dr. Kerry Middlecoff.
Yeah.
You forget about Johnny Miller and Dave Hill, and Mark McCumber won, I believe, 11 times, and my Uncle Bob won 11 times.
Bruce Litsky won, I think, 12 or 13. Yes, that's true.
Yeah. Justin Leonard, Andrew McGee, I think, won double digits. And it just goes on and on and on. And through you start looking at, oh, man, the John Houston, I'll bet, probably won 10 times. Maybe he didn't, but
you're right. I would have missed that. I would have missed that one way off. And I do this for a living. I need to start doing my homework. So you can always learn something every day. Remember that, kids.
That's right.
But I appreciate you being with us. Good luck to y'all, and get you an NCAA championship. Y'all got a good enough team to do it. It's going to be fun. I'm getting to cover college golf a lot. I've had a blast doing it. I'm looking forward to watching y'all play this spring.
Thank you, Jim, very much, and I appreciate you having me on.
What were you thinking on that play? Take a lap, and when you come back, maybe you'll do things